Hi, I'm the Model Gamer, Robert Russell, and I wanted to come at you before this next video with a couple of announcements. Anyone who's been following the model situation knows what's going on with Eagle Moss right now. But if you're not familiar with that, in the short term, they're seeking an administrator to run their business. Now, because of this, they basically put a hold on all of their model shipments. So what does that mean for the enterprise build? I've got 18 videos of that up. I'm not going to take those videos down. But I'm not going to be posting any new videos about it. And I'm also going to take off of all those videos the link to get the model for yourself. This is just a temporary thing until I find out more about what's going on with Eagle Moss, and when I find out what's going on, I'll let you guys know on an episode of the Model Frontier. Second thing, I know in my first video on this build, I said that Agora typically sends out six stages per pack. And this pack only gives us 4 stages, just like the first pack did. I reached out to Agora, and they assured me that there's an error on their website where it says that you get 6 from pack 2 onwards. The first 2 are going to have 4 stages each, but then all the rest will have 6 each. So next pack should have 6 stages. If you've been following my channel, if you're one of the over 200 subscribers to my channel, first of all, thank you for being subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the content. But you may have noticed there have been some videos disappearing from my channel. That's because I've been getting copyright claimed for the music I've been using in these videos. Sony Music's been, not recognizing my fair use argument for several of the songs in the Titanic series. This has led me to have to, first of all, I had to upload my first video because that got taken down. So now my videos are going to be out of order in the playlists. But number 2, I've gotten now 2 copyright strikes on my channel, which means I can't really afford a third, because then that means my whole channel gets taken down. However, I do have a backup for this. I've started an Odyssey channel, which is similar to YouTube, same sort of setup. You can still watch videos and everything. I'm putting a link in the description below to my Odyssey channel. Check it out, and if I ever disappear off of YouTube, you can check me out on Odyssey, and I'm not going anywhere there. So with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Hello everyone, welcome to the Model Frontier. If you are new to this channel, make sure to smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. That way you don't miss a second of any of my great content. As I mentioned in my last video, today we're going to just take a look at a few of the numbers when it comes to this model. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a 1/200 scale model of the Titanic. What that means is for every whatever unit of measure, inch, foot, meter, centimeter, whatever, for every 1 unit that you're using, that's equal to 200 of those same units for the Titanic. So as you can imagine, with the Titanic being 882.5 feet long, that means this model, when you do the math on this, is going to be almost 4.5 feet long about 5.5 inches wide, probably something like this, and about 10.5 inches tall from the bottom of the keel to the top of the funnels. So this is quite a big ship that we are building here. And with that size, we've got to talk about the cost. So as I mentioned before, this is a partworks model, which means you're getting a new shipment every, in this case, 6 weeks, with about 6 packs per shipment, or 6, stages per shipment. They call them packs at Agora. And this is a model that takes 24 of those packs to do. Now, they have 2 different options for subscriptions. A standard subscription and a subscription where they give you a deluxe display case for this model, which I am opting for. That is going to cost you between $79.99 and $89.99 US dollars every 6 weeks. So if you take those numbers and you multiply them out, for just the base model with no display stand or display case, you're looking at spending almost $1,880 US dollars on this model. If you opt to get the display case, the price goes up to almost $2,200 total. So this is not a cheap model by any means. The quality seems to be there, more or less, but the model is not cheap. There is a model, this same scale, 1/200 scale, made by a company called Trumpeter. I've mentioned them in the last video about the upgrade kit that I bought. That model has some advantages. It's much cheaper. I mean, you can usually find it for somewhere in the $300 to $500 US dollar range. You do get all the parts at one time, so you don't have to wait, a month to start to do another build, a part of the build. You can just build it as fast or as slow as you want. It is, however, a static model. That means unmodified. You're not going to have any sort of special effects with this. No smoking funnels, no LED, no lighting, no moving engine parts or propellers. It's just gonna, when it's all put together, it's just gonna sit there and just be a model. It's also all unpainted plastic. There's no metal in it. The hull's not made of metal, and it's all unpainted, so you're going to have to paint that one yourself. I'm choosing this model because, being a family man, I have no time to spend, painting a 4.5 foot long model of the Titanic. So for a person like me, getting something like this is beneficial because it lets me do just a little bit at one time. It gives me something to do each and every shipment, and the end result is going to be just phenomenal. But again, model making is a hobby that can cost a lot of money, and it's all going to depend on what you're willing to spend. So if you're still with me after all that, let's go back to Titanic. So here's all the pieces we get at the start of Stage 5, and I've already gone ahead and painted my hull piece. You see, it's not quite as purple now. But this piece we're going to set aside because we don't actually do anything with this. And instead we are focusing on this part. Now, the first thing we're going to do is they want us to take these sections here, so the first thing they want us to do is they want us to take these parts here, and with this bar, like this, we're going to go ahead and put these on. Now there is a big end and a small end. It's the big end that they want put clipped onto this. So clipped it on, and now we're going to do that 3 more times. Okay, now that those are clipped on, they want us to take these pieces that look like kind of like ladders almost, and we're going to connect them to the other side. Now, so we're going to flip this over. They want us to have it like this with these 4 posts sticking up. And then all we're going to do is just clip this into these 2 on the end here. Now those are clipped on, they're not directional, so there's no special way that they have to go. So now, we're going to take these pieces, and they want us to clip these to these 2 points here with this sticking out. So this is going to be a little bit on the tricky side, because this top one's got to go in here. This squarish one's going to go in the middle, and the round one's going to go on the end. Okay, so now with our parts still like this, they want us to tilt this up. And then we're going to put this end in to these 2 spots. This point is going to be on the outside. And the curve is going to be on the inside. So this is going to be a tricky, fiddly thing to do. And there we go. Now you got those in. Bring that back here, because that is all there is to do in that stage. Now here with stage 6, I know that it came with a section of the hull. I'm not showing that right now because there's something we're going to be talking about in just a minute with that. So we're going to continue on with the first step, which is basically we're going to continue on with this. So once again, we got 2 of these pieces, put on like this. Alright, and then we got 2 more of these pieces to put on, just like we did before. So flip it up. I'm going to get these on here. So once that's all done, we're bringing over our engine section. And we're going to connect these together. Now, they want the end piece here to be down so that you get these going the right way. You're just going to clip them into position like so. Okay, once you got those clipped into place, we're going to bring this whole thing up. And you're going to put these points into the 4 holes you see here. You gotta make sure we got this turned the right way. I put these on backwards. I put this piece on backwards. So I'm gonna go fix that real quick. So I'm gonna show you what I did wrong here. I don't know if it'll show up on here. Maybe if I move that out of the way. Okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but on this piece, if you look at it from this direction, there's a flat edge and there's an edge with a lip. You want this flat edge to be the edge that goes into these parts so that they sit flush with your engines. So I'm going to have to flip all these around and get these all back into place. So now we got that all fixed up. To borrow a line from World of Wayne, I make mistakes so you don't have to. So now we can bring these all up and get them clipped into place like they're supposed to be. So now once we take that and get that all going and turning it, you can see we've got a little more motion with our engines. Now that's all they want us to do with that. Now we need our 2 pieces of hull to continue on with the next part of stage 6. However, before we do that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this Titanic part. Now, as you can see, mine is now markedly different than what you get with yours. And that's because I changed out the entire nameplate here. This is basically just a piece of polystyrene that's going to be, you know, fully painted black to match the hull. A little bit of details being added to it. But that is more accurate to the ship than what they give you in this kit. So we're obviously going to have to do this on the black part of the hull we get, but we're obviously going to have to do it differently because we don't get a piece to put on, it's a part of the hull. So we're going to have to get a little creative as far as how we do that, which basically means we're going to have to sand down a section of the hull to get it flat and then we're going to have to paint it. I'm going to show you how to do that. And hopefully it works out good. So as I mentioned, here's our hull piece, and you can see I've already drilled out all my windows. I'll put a link to, that's basically something I cover in stage 1, or in stage 2 I should say, but in my first video, so you know, check that out. I'll put a link to that section in the description, and I'll also put a link up on somewhere up here. But now we gotta do something different, because unlike our one section, like I said, this Titanic nameplate is on there fully, is part of the thing. And I don't want this one, so we're gonna have to smooth this section out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a Dremel tool to do this. Now, I've got several different heads to use. I think I'm gonna try grinding it down. I don't see any reason why you can't manually file them down if you really wanna, you know, maintain control over it, but I'm just gonna try a nice grinding stone here to grind it down a bit. So I'm going to try this off camera, and I'll come back and show you how I do when I get it done. And there we go. Now, after using a few of my Dremel tools, you can see now we've got that. Oh, I don't know if my lighting's kind of terrible here, but you can see now we got that nice and smooth. So now to decide the next steps, I gotta go paint this thing and see how it looks when it's all painted. So I'll come back and show that to you after I paint it all up. So now with that one section painted, you can see it actually turned out really good. You can barely tell there was ever anything there. Now you're probably wondering why I haven't painted the whole thing yet, because we've got a couple of other things to do on this before we can paint it and add the nameplate. So to understand better, let's go back to our other nameplate. Okay, so obviously, yes, I am filming out of order here because, you know, this wouldn't be on here right now till later, but I had to do things because of, you know, technical issues. But let's take a look at that Titanic nameplate. Now, first of all, there's two holes right here that kind of surround it, along with deck plating that kind of give you the idea of how long this thing is. If we move this over here and take a look at this one, we have one piece of deck plating. That's going to be our guide. So we got a piece of deck plating here that we're going to mirror on this other side here. So we need to know how much of a space we need to dedicate between basically this and this deck plate. So we're going to use our ruler here. And it's coming in looks like 38 millimeters or 3.8 centimeters. So 38 millimeters is the distance we have between these 2 points. So for this, I'm going to get my masking tape so we can make a mask of this. So now we've masked this, so now we've got this mask on a flat surface. It makes it easier to do this. So 38 millimeters is right here. So this is the end of, so this is from the outer end of one plate to the outer end of another. We also know that each of these plates, if you measure them out, they're about 1 millimeter each in thickness. So we're going to make a 1 millimeter thick line right here. Okay, now this is important to make sure we get these because we only get a limited amount of room to put the Titanic nameplate on here, and we got to put these other 2 holes in. So if we go back to this for a minute, the center of this hole here is 2 millimeters. The center of this hole is 2 millimeters from the end of this thing. So we're going the opposite direction. So we're going to go 2 millimeters out. On this, and we'll draw our line here. Straight in there. Alright, so now we got to drill a hole there. We got the same thing on this. So from the end of this one is going to be another 2 millimeters. That's the center of the hole. Let's get these to match up. This one doesn't really matter as much because that's not where the nameplate's going to go. Okay, so we got our 2 hole points here. So now we're going to put this back onto our hull piece. So actually, the first thing we're going to do... first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 1 millimeter thick piece here. Now, to make this, you could use polystyrene and you could super glue it on. And that'll work totally fine. But if you want to take a little shortcut, like I like to, we can use some electrical tape. Now, why use electrical tape? Well, because you can cut it easier. It'll stick right onto the ship, and it's just a lot easier to work with. So now we got a fresh blade for fine precision work, so let's cut off this piece of tape. You don't need all that. Now we want to get just a very thin piece, so I'm going to start off by just cutting a flat section out. Got a nice flat piece cut, and then we're going to do a 1 millimeter trim from that line. What I like to do is I like to put a mark on it and then just kind of square my piece up here. And then use my blade and my ruler as my kind of guide here. We got our 1 millimeter piece. So now we gotta see where we gotta put it. So where I'm gonna put this piece here is, I go from this end. So I'm gonna go about 35 millimeters out on this one. Use my tweezers. Line this up, Okay, now obviously that's not very thick, so we can double up on it. Maybe even triple up. Just build it up until it gets to a spot you like. See, like that. Now, we're going to put our mask back on where it needs to go. And this is why I always like to do more than just the minimum. Now we can feel there's a bump there. And now I'm going to drill these two holes out. Now, technically, it doesn't go all the way through, but for simplicity's sakes, I am going to drill it all the way through, because just like with just like with this piece, you're going to likely have a piece covering the holes up. If you don't, you can always fill them and be good with it. I'm going to do the same size as I do for these windows on C&D deck. So if you're using the same, as always, I'm going to start drilling it out with a 1mm bit, and then I'm going to go up and make them just this same size. So I'll come back when that's all done and show you what it looks like. Now that we got the holes drilled and the hull painted, we're going to take a minute to have a word on the decals. So here we have two different sets of decals that I'm going to go over. I will put links to these in the description below, but again, just like with some of the parts, these may or may not be there. If you're lucky enough, get them both. Take a chance and get both of them. They both have some good points. This one has a lot of the littler details, like these 401 numbers. That's the Titanic's registry. You can stick that in a few places. You got all the different flags and labels for the lifeboats. You have your Titanic nameplates, you have your Titanic nameplates for the sides and back. You have your depth markers, your flags, your different notices. It's not that expensive either, so it's a really good set. This is known as the Petting House set. And then we have this set, which is a homemade set that comes with all sorts of cool things. First of all, you also get the lifeboat markings, and you get the hull markings. You can't see them here, but you get the depth markings for stern and bow. One thing I like about this is it's got several different options, and everything's labeled. So like, one of the options is, there's debate between whether the notice board saying that there's 3 blades on the ship were either red or black. On this, you get them both. You also get your stripe, which is going to come in handy if you can get this. It'll fit nicely, and it's going to come in real handy. I'm going to go over a little bit about that in a moment. You get different nameplates. You get the Olympic, you get the Titanic, of course, and you get Britannic. So, technically speaking, if you want to, you can You could do some crazy stuff, like you could use this to make 3 different ships. You could buy this kit a few times and have, you know, make the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic and have your own little 1-200 metal hull fleet. That would be expensive. I've already used one of these. Now, this is interesting, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit if I can here to show this. So you'll notice there are 2 different Titanic plates. There's straight ones and there's tilted ones. Technically, the tilted one is the correct one. That's the one I used on the starboard side. You can use the other one. Make sure you don't use the curved one because that goes on the stern. So when you're getting a decal out, again, you want to have a nice sharp blade. And you just want to, and you can see, if you look on it, you can see the outline of the decal. You don't want to take too much off, but just get yourself enough around it. So we just got the Titanic nameplate out. Now, let's talk about a key point, the stripe. Take a look at this segment of the hull. Now, we know our stripe is going to go up here. That means we've got a 5 millimeter gap. So this piece here is 5 millimeters thick. Your stripe, we measure it, is 1 millimeter thick. Your Titanic nameplate, we measure that, the section that will actually be used is about 3 millimeters. So if you can imagine, that means you're gonna have to plan for that little millimeter. So Titanic is gonna go on pretty close to the bottom here. Gonna go right in between these 2 points, right in the middle. If you want to use the, if you want to use the front one, you can. But basically, you look at this. If you look at this one starts. Titanic kind of begins right at this plate marker. So on this side, because it's going the opposite direction, we're going to want it to end. So you're going to want your C to kind of line up there. So let's get this decal on. So like all decals, these ones are no exception. They are water activated. So get yourself a little trough of water. You don't need that much. You don't need to drown it. Good water here. And then you're going to drop your decal into the water. It's going to start to curl. Use your tweezers to get it all the way down in there. Let it soak for a moment. You may also want to take a little bit of the water and kind of rub it on your hull piece where you're going to be putting this. Help it. That also will give you some more adjustment time. It's not going to take it that long. That's good. It should sort of slide off. So once you got it starting to slide, set it there and just kind of move it slowly. You don't want to lift too much because these are delicate. then once you got it where you want it, just kind of manually adjust it into place. Just checking to see if it's straight, and it is. Now you're going to want to get some of this excess water off. So the best thing to do is to get a Q-tip and or a cotton swab, and we're going to roll the excess water out from underneath the decal. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your Q-tip and you're going to kind of pat and roll. I'm gonna go get the excess water dried off, and then I'll come back. Now then, once everything is painted and all dried up, I know you're gonna ask, how do you get it to not shine like that? Because you'll notice my other plate, it doesn't shine that way. Well, if you watch my video on the different upgrade kits, you'll remember I mentioned the matte finishing spray. Well, you would spray that on this and it'll make that thing kind of blend in. Plus it'll protect your paint job that you've already done on this, and it'll make it a matte finish to match the red part of the hull. So you want to go spray that, let it dry, and then we'll come back and continue on with the next part of this stage. And there you go. Now that that's dry, you can see it's not shining up as much, so it's looking just like it should. You can put as many layers as you want on it, but now we can we're finally done messing with all this, so we can actually do the next part of this stage. Well, now after all that work on getting the nameplate fixed up and the hull looking nice, this is going to seem like a little bit of a breeze. So we're basically taking this piece from stage 5 and we're going to combine it with this piece from stage 6 that we've been working on. So flip them over, find where they meet up. Once you get them in position, you're going to hold them in place with a pair of DM screws. As I said with the engine, since they're M screws, they're getting dipped in oil. There you go. That part of the hull is now done. Kind of wish they had done that for the other side, but that is all there is to do in that stage. Okay, so here's what we have for the beginning of stage 7. We're going to be adding a base to our engines. So the first piece we need is going to be this plastic piece here, which has some stairs. That is an important piece because the stairs are going to go towards this end with the gear. There's 4 tabs right here that you're going to want to get it onto. It can be fiddly. I find the best way to do is get 2 on in one direction and then wiggle the other 2 in. It's finicky, it's tricky, but since it is plastic, you'll eventually get it there. See? And then we're going to hold that down into place with 4 EM screws at the ends. So they're going to go into these. They're going to go into the screw holes on these cross pieces right here. As always, since they are M screws, since they're going into metal, we dip them in oil before we put them in. Alright, once you got that nice and tight, we're going to get this second piece of the base. It's a nice big metal piece. It is directional. We got a curved section here, and you can see we got a section here where it's flat. So obviously, the curved section is going to go, again, where your gear is here. And you're going to hold this down with 2 different screws. The first thing they want you to do is put in 6 AP screws. I find it's easy since they're going into plastic and they're, you don't have to oil them up. The easiest way for you to do this is going to be to just kind of get them dropped into the holes and then screw them down. Alright, and then they now want you to put in 4 FM screws into these holes. So obviously we're going to put them into metal. And since we're putting them in metal, we're going to dip them in oil. If you're new to this kind of thing, a lot of you may ask, why dip the metal ones in oil only? Because I'm not sure how well it's going to show up if it'll even show up on camera, but yeah, it's not even going to show up. But the metal screws are basically, they cut in to the holes a little bit. And a lot of these Partworks models, they also paint over things, so you're basically cutting the threads with the paint. That's why you may have seen in your first issues when they're talking about joining the hull together, sometimes it's easy to screw it in a little, then screw it back out, and then screw it in for good, because you're cutting into that hole a little bit and getting some of the paint out. But if you put oil on your parts, it's definitely very easy to do. And there's different types of oil. I've seen people use, World of Wayne, he uses something he calls a 3-in-1 oil, which you can find at like model shops. I use good old WD-40. I've heard of people using vegetable oil. You can use whatever oil you want. It just really helps, get these screws to go in. Also, what method do you use? What I like to do is you get your magnetized screwdriver, like so. It's barely going to hold the screws on sometimes. You just dip the tip into a container of your oil and then put it in. Put it in your hole. You can also use like how we do super glue on my channel. You can also do something similar and just drop the oil into each hole. I just like doing it on the screws because it's just easier for me. It's what I'm used to doing. So there's your explanation as to why we use oil when it's going into metal only. When it's going into plastic, you don't really have to do that because the threads are wider, so they don't meet as much resistance, and you're not screwing them in as tight as possible. When it goes into metal, we screw them in very tight. Plastic screws, you just want to keep them, you just want them to go in until you meet a little resistance, so that you're not stripping the heads or anything. But metal screws, you want those to get in as tight as you can. Once that's in, your engines are now on a nice base. You can see they still... Whoops, that popped out like it wasn't supposed to. They still turn just fine. And that is it for this, and that is it for this, and now you can stand them up. So that's kind of how they're going to sit in your ship. Very nice. So that's it for this part of stage 7. Next we got a little work to do on the port side hulls, so go get that section and I'll meet you back here. So this next part of stage 7 is going to have us basically finishing up with the nameplate on this part of the ship. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip this over. Again, I'm putting it on a piece of styrofoam to keep it safe. Now we got this piece here, and how they want it to go on is basically only go in one way. There's a peg on this side right here, and it's going to go into this far hole on this side. Let's get that in place. The rest of these should go into place just where they're supposed to. And this is why they said you can't glue down the nameplate on this side yet, because we're going to secure this piece down with BP screws, but we're going to be going in from the front. So obviously you have to be able to get behind this piece. You have to get back there where the nameplate is. So we're going to screw these in, and then we should be good. Just like that. You put your screws in there and there. And now this piece is sturdy in there. So now we can fix our Titanic nameplate down. Now if you were doing this normally, you would just pop the nameplate in place, maybe put a little glue on it, and that would be it. But since we're doing it this modified way, we're going to glue it down. So it's going to sit flush against the hull. There we go. That nameplate on there finishes up this part of the hull. That also will finish up this stage. I'm going to go on and do some tidying up on this section to make it look good off camera. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so now in stage 8, we're back to the forecastle, and while stage 1 is the last time we saw this, and we kind of did things all over the place on this, this stage is a little more centered. We're going to be working mainly in this section here. So the first things we're going to be putting in are, our anchor winches. Now, in the instructions, this is just one solid piece with a couple of things you stick through. But ours are different because we're doing the KA kit. But what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to get some glue. And we're going to coat the bottoms of these parts with the glue. And we're going to put them in. If you're doing the upgrade kit, there's a... I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there's a valve on the side there, and it's going to go on the outer part of both of these. And again, you can just kind of follow the pattern there. Now that we got those in place, there's a couple small details to put into place here. Now in the KA kit, this is just two pieces that a photo etch that you have to bend into place, and you stick to the deck. But I stuck them onto a piece of the photo etch sheet because that's how it looks on the part that I'm on the pictures I'm looking at. And that's my personal choice. You can choose to do that if you want. Okay, now that we got those fine details on, you would normally screw in the winches, but again, we don't need to do that because, well, they're in there. So the next step is we have a couple of bollards to put on in your KA kit. If you're doing this, these bollards, these are the... Again, in your kit, if you're doing these bollards, these are the X05, so they're the same ones as these two here. And you can see right where they're going to go. Just like that, those are in place. Now next, you have two little vent units, and this is going to be kind of hard to show, but if I lift this up here, there's two rectangular openings right in front of the cargo hatch, and these little housing units, which are these things here, they're going to go in there. But there is a thing to note with these. There's a little, you're not going to be able to see it, no chance, but there is a little hole in these things. You need to have that facing towards the anchor chains. Those have to face towards these parts. There's also, this valve is kind of off center. Just follow your instructions to put it into place. Alright, now those are in place. And normally that's where we would end it for this part of stage 8. We would normally go on to adding some parts to the hull, but there is one more thing we can do. Because we're not really going to be doing any really major parts, any major add-ons to this section of the ship, there's a couple of rods that I mentioned and that you can clearly see in your instructions on the KA set that go between here and here. Well, no time like the present to get those added into position. Okay, so after that little fiddly bit of business, That is it for this part of stage 8. You can see how nice that section's starting to come together. Now we're going to go ahead and get our hull and do some more work on that. So with that part of stage 8 done, I thought I'd do a little something extra for you guys so you could kind of see a comparison of the Forecastle. Basically, this is how your Forecastle would look if we were doing all the kit parts. Not horrible, you know, not a terrible looking Forecastle at all, don't get me wrong, it looks really good. But compare it to what we've done. And you can see that ours has a lot more detail, a lot more going on with it, and it just looks better overall. So this is what I mean when I say the tiniest details that you may not even be able to see. Like, I don't know if that'll be able to show up, but there's a little red spigot there that I put in. These are little details you probably won't ever see, but they are there and you would notice if they were missing. So this again is exactly why we're doing what we're doing, because we'll just compare the two and you'll see which one definitely looks better. But now we've got another piece to work on and improve, so let's go ahead and get to that. So we got this white piece to put on to our hull that we've been working on, and let's talk about this end of it, basically the very front. Now, at first glance, it's not horrible, but it's also, again, not accurate, and we want to go for accuracy. So I've got this tiny piece. It's a China 3D part that's going to go on this section and basically replace it. But the first thing we got to do is we got to get this off, and if we sit there to grind it down, it's going to take us forever. So I'm going to actually use my Dremel tool to cut off a section of it, and then we're gonna go ahead and put this one piece on and glue it down. Okay, so now we got that off and flattened. The key thing is this has to be flat, and it is. We can now glue our new prow piece onto this part. So you're gonna put your glue on here. Don't worry if you overdo it, because we are going to be painting this up. Now this is going to be tricky because you got to get this part straight, but it's also at an angle. Once you're happy with how that looks really good from that side. We're gonna go over and paint this thing white. So whether you design your own front part to this white section or you use the one that comes in the kit, either way, you're gonna attach it to the top here. And you're gonna do that with 2 BP screws in these sections. There are tabs to help you kind of guide it into place, and then you're going to secure it down with your screws. you go. Once that's on, that is all there is to do in this stage. And that is it for this pack, and you can start to sort of see things come together if you really want. So we zoom out a little bit here, and if we tilt this up, you can already sort of see just where the forecastle's gonna go. Can't put it on yet, but we are getting to that point. So that's all there is for this stage. That's all there is for this pack. Wow, we got quite a bit done. So that is it for pack 2. Not a lot done, I'll admit, but I mean, we did put together some more of the hull. We started on the starboard side this time, and we did a little bit more work on the port side. We did some more work on the engines, so little steps here and there. This is something you're going to have to expect with Partworks models, though. They can't all be, you know, big steps. You're going to have some stages where you do very little, but it's all going to lead to something spectacular in the end. Tune in next time for Pack 3. We're going to take a closer look at the different upgrade kits that you could buy for this model. Including taking a closer look at the kit I chose to get, and I'll explain why I chose the kit I did. Meanwhile, thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you next time on the Model Frontier.